Ladies and gentlemen, training camp is finally back.
Thank goodness.
We are doing a quarterfinals prep camp in Maine, Misfit HQ, March 12th and 13th, with the asterisk that on the 11th, we would love for you to show up and do the open workout, 22.3 at Misfit Gym Portland with the crew. You know, sort of use it as that icebreaker a little bit. Show up. You'll have a coach assigned to your group that's going to warm you up, talk points of performance, all that good stuff. And you want to know what? There's no reason why we can't open the doors Thursday night if you get here early for the final 22.3 Sherb v. Hunter throwdown. So if you get some heckling going,
in place of Hunter v. Sherb, show up Thursday evening.
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
Yeah, wait, you sure?
Dude, I'm gonna wear a suit and slick my hair back. We're gonna get stands. We're gonna get bleachers. I'm gonna get crazy sweaty. I'm gonna have Ted dump like a gallon of water on my head. I'm gonna walk out. Good morning, Misfits. You were tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast, the full goon squad in the house. We are back from Thanksgiving break. I know it was probably tough to go an entire week without us, without the grip test.
Fuck.
Without Sherb.
We got to do. Wow.
Sad week.
Let's.
You're on YouTube. You can check out his. I don't know. It's. I think if we're explaining what you look like right now, it's like if you had a Von Dutch hat on. You could be like Kevin Federline.
If
bro.
If those if those were black, it would look like the floor mats.
He's got some rust-colored sweatpants.
Called swag.
The Sunday crew on.
An homage to my man,
and,
Virgil.
Yes, he's got the homage to Virgil down there with the shoes.
Called fashion. Look it up.
Yeah.
We all can't wear gray.
How was your
and black.
Thanksgiving, guys?
Great.
Gentlemen.
It's good. My family finally had the chance to like get together again after a couple of years off. So that was nice to get everyone together. And my cousin Sarah has twin boys. They're about a year and a half older than Zion. So like, it was kind of cool to see like kind of like a preview of what he's going to be like when he's close to 3 years old. So
how many calories did you eat? I already know Hunter's bullshit answer.
What's he say?
About
Like,
last
like
week.
10 calories,
15.
It was a little,
a good amount. I definitely had 2 full plates of turkey stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, and I know you won't like this, but squash. But I like some squash on Thanksgiving.
Podcast
and
is
a
over.
handful of rolls. You can't skip Thanksgiving. We make homemade rolls like my grandmother's recipe every year. So that's like the family thing that we all do. We just make bread for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just scarf as so much bread down as we can. It's a great day.
that sounds pretty good.
I had a bread incident at Thanksgiving number one. I had 2 Thanksgivings. Thanksgiving number one, we tried a new gluten-free like roll, but it was in a bag,
But
that
it
you, like,
wasn't
couldn't see
gluten-free?
through. And no, luckily there was no. I didn't eat anything I was allergic to. That's
a good
time
year.
around,
That's a
which
good
is nice.
Thanksgiving.
But I kid you not, like in movies when something deflates and it makes that noise and then there's just like the shell of whatever it was. That's what these rolls were. It was crazy.
Like a dying star just collapses on itself.
I opened the bag and pulled one out and it looked like someone had stomped a roll into like absolutely nothing. And I was like, it's just frozen. It's fine. Came out of the oven even worse. It was like the shape of like a silver dollar pancake.
It was like a little rice Chex.
It's that little bagel chip that you get in the Chex Mix.
Yeah.
So those were left at my parents' house by accident.
Oops.
And I redeemed myself on Thanksgiving number 2. Also, somehow cooked a like 13, 14 pound turkey in like 90 minutes by accident, but it was delicious.
We had
So it
that
didn't matter.
issue too, and we pulled it out, and my brother and I almost got into a fight, and I was like, the breast is 170 degrees right now. I don't care what you say. This fucking turkey's done. And apparently I didn't know this. Did you know this, Ted? That the thighs like technically have to be like 10 degrees hotter to be safe.
175, 180 is where the fat starts to break down. They're safe to eat at 165. They're just rubbery.
Right.
There's so much more connective tissue, so you got to get the temp up to break down the connective tissue.
Yeah,
And
so
they
the thighs were
also,
still,
it
like,
cooks faster. So if you did pull it out when the thighs were low, just by default, almost everything else would be not cooked.
Right. So like the top was like 165 and it hasn't even rested yet. But the thighs were still like 140. And I was,
Your thighs were 140.
That's what
What did you put it
stuck
in?
The thermometer. I don't know.
Did you have the basket so the air could get under it?
Yeah.
Get out of here. Would you freeze the
It's just
thighs
like,
before?
Maybe. Yeah. Just
The thinner part cooked faster than the
Use
fatter
liquid
part?
nitrogen on the
I don't
thighs.
fucking know. All right. Listen.
All right, real quick question though. How many pounds of turkey per person? What do you guys use as your number? Because this is a huge topic of debate at my
Well,
Thanksgiving.
the problem is so much of the turkey, like you don't eat it because
Yeah,
it's
of
bones
course.
and all
I was
that. But it's
asking that
supposed to be
before.
1 pound to 1.5 pounds is what they say on the interwebs.
Is it not like 4 or 5
person.
pounds per person like my family does? My family had 3 turkeys and there's like 6 people eating. It's like
Yeah. Perfect. Sounds great.
yeah, half turkey per person.
I always cook too much turkey because the idea of not being able to make my leftover situation
Yeah.
is
Do
too
you
upsetting.
do an open face like turkey sandwich on like gluten-free bread or
I do just a saucepan filled with gravy, turkey, and stuffing. Like I eat a bowl.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost soup consistency. It's one of my favorite meals ever.
One of our other full-timer Kyle, he posted his like day 1 after and day 2 after, and I was like, that's it, right? Because he's like, day 1 post meal is just like throw everything in a container and bake it. Day 2 post is throw everything in a container, put cheese on it, and bake it. And it was like,
That's a good
good.
addition to it?
Our family has a
Calorie
long-
restriction on Thanksgiving?
No,
8 calories per person.
We're in a lifetime surplus of calories. We've never made. Every year we make way too much food, and we used to have like 10 or 15 people at the house,
is
so it was
America.
like
We eat too much food and you like it.
we need we need a 700-pound turkey like every year, and then there's only 4 of us, and it's like we don't need a 700-pound turkey. So we're overcorrecting for the years of
Fair.
way too much food.
I understand.
What about dessert?
Oh, cherry cranberry cobbler
What?
was this year.
Pumpkin
pie?
cheesecake is my
That's a good
my
one.
go-to.
Yeah, I do pumpkin
That's
pie.
Yeah.
my absolute favorite.
Pumpkin pie is just
I always get judged for the size of the slice I have. Like just because you out eat everyone and you're not you know how everyone when you go to like a birthday, like Thanksgiving, whatever it is.
sliver, please.
Oh, just it's like you're gonna have 19 slivers, okay? No one's
Yeah, I
allowed
play
to
that.
judge
That's
you
the game
today.
I play.
Please
I do 50
stop.
slivers.
So maybe I end up with 32% of the thing on my
I
plate.
do make sure I'm the one who serves the dessert. You portion that out right, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden,
I can't stand that. Everybody likes cheesecake. Let's not, okay? Don't judge me. I know I already ate more than you before, and I'm eating more than you again.
I'm going to continue to do so.
I didn't know that I'm fucking annihilating you
Listen,
on the leaderboard, but
Also ran a 10K,
Granny, no.
100 push-ups, 100 curl to strict press.
Oh, you
I was
you modulated.
so ready. I also almost fell asleep like 12 times at both Thanksgiving.
That's the problem with that early morning exercise on Thanksgiving Day is you barely make it to 5 p.m.
Good.
I also final anecdote that is sort of a segue is I didn't do the heart rate. I've like that's all I've been doing lately is doing the heart rate run. So I went out and ran a 10K with no looking at the heart rate at all.
No metrics.
And I still have the like I can definitely tell it's working. I'm running faster. I'm much more comfortable, but my heart rate was I averaged a 177 heart rate and I felt fine. I did not feel out of control at any point. So I think it's interesting and could be part of this episode is RPE versus reality
one of the
and
things-
why the Maffetone method works so well because people think they're at a certain heart rate. And like you sent me one a few weeks ago, you were in the 160s average and you felt like you were in like the
taking a nap.
140s.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that one of the things I've noticed that both you and Hunter do is we're all doing these like longer pieces. And I know that recently you've been trying to compare, your Whoop strap to other metrics. And I think we have Apple Watches and I got a Garmin, but kind of figuring out what the best nuance is there. And one of the things that we talked about, and if you're someone who's really fixated on trying to improve that and maybe you're not seeing the results that you want or you can't get consistent results from your trackers, I mean, you told me the same thing, but get yourself a chest strap and start doing it that way because that's going to be the most accurate measurement you can get
Go get a Garmin
wearable,
chest strap. It will connect to just about anything, and it will
The
be
key
accurate.
is to get irritated about the disparity between your Apple Watch, your Whoop,
Use it as
and
fuel.
your actual heart rate. So then you get angry, and then your heart rate gets up to where it's supposed to be, and you're good to go.
I can confirm that works.
Yeah, anger, and heart rate.
Yeah, anger works
I'm gonna
good.
stare at my heart rate angry.
That's part of the next
perfect.
phase is programming, right? Before you start any of your aerobic work, you get real angry.
Yeah, I wrote it.
You write
the whole
down the
phase.
insults that cut you the deepest, and you hand them out to people. You get sticky notes. Hunter's triple extension is ridiculous.
Hey,
He said I only had 8 calories.
Hunter broke
Thanksgiving.
3 pull-up bars on his chest to bar last month.
Jesus.
All right, it's just too fun. I can't help it. Things we're seeing in phase 3. I think overarching theme right now is that we keep getting to see that progression. We keep getting to see athletes, like for us, because you guys are posting on social media and posting your scores, we get more periodic glimpses into how athletes are performing, and it's easier for us to see progress. Like I can literally see athletes, you know, based on certain weights that they had posted before, this is moving smooth, or, you know, whatever in the snatch, they're sweeping the bar through the middle better than they were before, or they're putting up times. And I'm like, man, I feel like in this style of workout, this person on the leaderboard, you know, used to be in 5th or 6th, and now they're in 1st all the time. So I think it's important when you're stuck in the details and the nitty gritty in the day to day that you have some sort of marker that you can go back to and see, you know, that progress that you made over that period of time, because we can tell. Like it's very easy for me to go in and tell and scroll through, you know, our mentions on Instagram and the hashtag and stuff like that. And the progress is probably, I would say, the best that we've seen it since we got started.
Yeah, what I've noticed both with my remote athletes and people who kind of just reach out to me in general is that people are asking the right questions, the questions we hope to get as coaches. Like, how should this feel? How should this go? Not, I did this RX, cool. A lot of that I get back from athletes right
Athlete
now.
IQ is definitely
increasing.
going up.
Yeah, increasing. And to me, it's really cool. And I think a great example of it is just all of the rowing work that we're doing. You know, that 400/350 or 360 cal row test. And a lot of athletes are now being asked to row at paces that convert from calories per hour to 500 meter splits. And I'm seeing a lot of athletes connect the dots between the two. And, you know, one thing we always talk about with athletes is improving that IQ, or improving how much you know about yourself, knowing what holding 1,100 calories per hour feels like versus a 1,300 calories per hour. So to me, I'm seeing a lot of people really, you know, take a deep dive into learning more about how these things actually affect them, instead of just being like, I tried hard today and that was, you know, a good effort, which is still a great place to get started. But to me, it's seeing people take that extra level of care and really asking the right questions. All right, I have this much rest this week. Last week it was a little bit less or a little bit more. How does that change the way I move? And those are the questions I love to get as a coach, because that tells me the athlete's invested, they're thinking about how they're moving, and they want to know, where's the 1%? How can I find out that extra 1%? And what they're doing, asking those questions ahead of doing the piece, is really how you make that next leap. And that's something I really would love athletes to do day in and day out, is to spend some portion of their training, like, I don't know, energy meter on thinking about how things should go before starting, so that those things then do play out the way they hope to play out and get the adaptation they're looking for.
True. In terms of things that we're seeing that we can probably help a little bit on improving, number one, the post-activation potentiation, your seated box jumps off of your back squat. Again, we did the behind the programming quick little episode that you'll see when you go in and do that, you know, on the site and on SugarWOD and on the app and all that good stuff. But the thing that we're seeing, athletes are being dynamic but not explosive. So we're seeing athletes essentially rock forward like they're supposed to, start to jump, and then the second that they can, drive their knees up and get up onto the box. And that is a skill that you need for high box jumps within the sport, but it is not the application that we're looking for. When you're doing PAP, no matter what it is, you are trying to mimic the movement that you're doing, that's the strength piece, with the actual secondary movement that you're trying to do. So with the squat, we need you to stand all the way up. We need you to be explosive through the hip. So we want to see that, like a lot of people have been posting on Instagram, the slow-mo version of it. We want to see the ankle fully open, the knee fully open, and the hip fully open. We want that straight line all the way from your heel all the way up to your shoulder. And then if that box is in front of you, what the high box does for you is mentally forces you to jump like that. There's some people that need that to get there, and we're totally cool with that. If you're using a lower box, though, there's a lot of people that just use the metric of keeping their legs straight, essentially. So you're jumping all the way up and not really regaining that knee bend. That could be the type of thing where you do it if like you got the mind fuck that a lot of people have because they see that high box and they don't want to jump. But moral of the story, you need to be explosive in your extension. Okay, that driving the knee up again, you're being dynamic, you're being quick, that's great, but that is a skill for CrossFit, not for strength accumulation. So really try to open that hip all the way up to jump as high as you can. And then if you need to bring your knees up because of where you set your box, that's fine.
Yeah, that video is going to be, the one that you're talking about, the little mini episode about the PAP is really important because, again, when it comes to anything, we don't just put things in the program for the fun of it. We want to put it in there to create some sort of adaptation. And we've actually seen great results at Team Misfit, something we've been doing for honestly, almost a year now, I'd say pretty close to it, of PAP on some of our higher CNS stuff, and seeing great translation to the general population with getting stronger by doing this. And these are people who are casual users of CrossFit. They come in 3-4 days a week. They aren't maybe the dedicated athlete that you are. And I know that you're trying to get that adaptation. So again, devil's in the details when it comes to this stuff. Take what Drew just said to heart and really just focus on being as explosive as possible rather than trying to have the tallest, box jump on Instagram for the day.
But coach, what if I'm not explosive? What if I'm not an explosive athlete?
We'll get to that, young man.
Oh, okay.
Don't you worry.
I was trying so hard.
I was trying to segue you.
Segue.
Trying to give you
we have
segue.
potentially the two biggest announcements that we've dropped on this podcast in the last 2 or 3 years.
All right, everybody, start jumping higher. Here we go.
Last but not least, something that Sherb noticed through going through the Instagram stuff, make sure that when you're working on your double dumbbell overhead walking lunges, that you are meeting a standard that CrossFit has set for those types of movements. If you have your hand all the way forward and the dumbbell is sort of sagging and you're reaching back, that is not going to count if this or a variation of this comes up in open, quarterfinals, semifinals, games, whatever it is. They're not going to allow that. So really try to keep that sort of neutral, parallel with the ground, perpendicular to your arm dumbbell. And I mean, it's going to make you better at the movement anyways. It's going to force you to really try to learn how to be stacked and how to use your lats to do all that stuff.
That's how you compensate. It forces you to do the movement the way that you have it. In our sport, they ask you to do things that are uncommon or things you haven't necessarily tested, but when they do give you kind of the answers to the test or what's coming, you should do your best to adhere to those standards so that you're not surprised if you go to a competition and they send you back to the start of your lunge line because you decided to tilt your dumbbells back.
I mean, the bigger underlying kind of principle there is like, okay, so the standard, like CrossFit sets a standard for the purpose of making sure everybody's doing the same thing without skirting kind of the system as best as is reasonable. But if you're that person who has to like cock the dumbbell back, you have to figure out a workaround for the movement. Like, you have a bigger problem, and it's like more than likely in that movement specifically, it's a mobility issue. And I kind of went on a rant on this a couple podcasts ago, but like I really wish they would incorporate. I like how they brought the pistols in, like the double or the single arm dumbbell snatch would be a good, like the squat snatch would be a good addition because of kind of that mobility, flexibility requirement. One, it's like from a CrossFit perspective, one of the physical skills, but also it's like got athletes who can figure out like a workaround because they have deficiencies in their mobility and their fitness. And it's like, no, fucking punish those athletes respectfully.
Yeah. And I think last year with quarterfinals, there was sort of a line in the sand that we got to step over and say, hey, like, we get to use the movements now.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to be like so bogged down on the open movements anymore. The open is sort of that, the beginning of the funnel. And it's great that it's going to stay, burpees and double unders and whatever it is. But as we get into quarterfinals, it was nice to see the GHD and the rope and all that good stuff. And I think we should see a continuation of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What should we do first? Which one of the two announcements should we do first?
The non.
Okay, yep, I got you. All right, so we have, and I'm not exaggerating. You'll know in, I don't know, 30 seconds that I'm not exaggerating, but we have what I would consider the two biggest announcements on the podcast that we've had in a very long time.
Fuck.
I'm talking years.
I gotta pee.
Okay. Number one, we have finally gone in and bolstered our remote coaching staff to the point where we can start accepting applications again. So essentially, for us as a company, not going to, open the floodgates and give a ton of athletes to a smaller coaching staff. We're also not going to say, okay, we need to add to our coaching staff, snap the fingers, and, we're off to the races. So we have spent all this time where we haven't talked about it, a year plus developing our coaching staff. So we have two more coaches, Kyle and Mark, from our gym here. That is the most comfortable scenario for us. We know that we can develop the coaches on site, that we can work with them, that we continue to have our remote coaching meetings where we come together and discuss ideas and all that. So that is the most ideal situation. And then most people probably already know this, but we have, people who don't live in Maine, but are sort of, the misfits that have been around for the period of time to sort of develop that trust. And we know how passionate they are about it. So we have Kenzie and Paige. So our coaching staff now is 9 coaches deep. And I am confident 1 through 9, top to bottom, that any athlete that gets delivered to them is going to receive what they should. And that's really exciting for us. So remote coaching applications are back open. I don't know if you guys want to take a second to touch on why someone would sign up for this, sort of what that, push would be to get you there. But I just want to say that all of our offerings, starting from the free workout that's on Instagram, are a spectrum from that point to remote coaching. So every single thing that we do goes across that spectrum, and we are trying to find where you slot in as an athlete. And that could be because you need a remote coach, you can afford a remote coach. Like there's different parameters here, but I think it's really important to say that that is how we view our ecosystem.
Yeah, to me, it all just comes down to behavior change and trying to get what you want from a remote coach. So anyone that reaches out to us for remote coaching is obviously looking for a second set of eyes, some opinion, maybe a support system. And what those people provide to you can't be understated, because if you go into anybody that talks about like behavior change or trying to create the opportunity to get better at something, you always have to find someone who can reflect or you can speak with, who's typically a higher level person you currently are. You probably heard the saying that if you're the best in the room, you need to find a different room to be in. Like, what's great about having a remote coach is you now have this person who is going to be able to help you think about things in a way that is different from the way that you do. And that's probably the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to remote coaching, is having this person that's going to hear your feedback or see your results, ask you questions about it, and get you to think in a way that's not the way that you're currently thinking. And for a lot of us, we get so entrenched in our own single groove that we can't get out of our own way sometimes. And this person, Mark, Kyle, Paige, Kenzie, whoever it is going to help you think about the way you're training and figure out, all right, is there some way to eke out those extra, percentage points they're always talking about that are going to help you reach that next level, whether that's qualify for quarterfinals, make a ticket to semifinals, or maybe you're trying to punch all the way through the games. But to me, it's having someone to work with that's going to have you thinking about the way you're training a little bit differently than maybe you currently are.
I think as somebody who has, I would say I might have the largest spectrum of athletes on my current roster, all the way from prospective games athlete to 68-year-old dad of one of our members at the gym who needs a little bit more guidance as far as hey, I can't go to I don't go to a normal CrossFit gym where I have the hands-on coaching. I have a lot of restrictions and limitations. I need somebody to help. And then everywhere in the middle. So I've got athletes again who are trying to qualify for the CrossFit Games. That's I don't want to say that's easy, but that's what we do, right? We try to produce those athletes or get athletes going in that direction if that's what their goals are. And then I have athletes who are hey, I need remote coaching because my schedule's so fucking ridiculous that I need my week of programming in front of me. I only have this amount of time. I have a lot of these little I have 1,000-piece puzzle that I need to pay somebody to put together. And right. That's where the remote coaching can benefit somebody like that. So one, like there's and the other thing too is like you would be extremely hard pressed to find a coaching staff like the Misfit Athletic coaching staff who has as wide of a range of experience of coaching, you know, beginner affiliate level athletes to podium finishing CrossFit Games athletes. Like you don't find that spectrum of coaching experience in one group. I mean, I don't know of anywhere. I mean, I'm sure some of the bigger our competitors, you know, have a similar story, but like you're gonna have a hard time finding.
I would say one of the things that separates our coaching staff from others is I think it's easy in this space to carry over the competitive nature from exercising to the coaching side. And one of the things that we preach here is if someone else has a superpower that you don't like hate that they have it or try to say something bad about them or whatever.
Steal it from them.
Yeah, you steal it from them. You go talk to them and say, hey, you know, you're really great at this. I'm really great at this. Couldn't we both? Yeah, exactly. Couldn't we both be really great at that? And I think you learn it on the affiliate level because there's sort of that performance aspect to it that's built into it. So you sort of learn to steal those attributes and work together and figure out what the best way to do it is. So you can apply for remote coaching right on our website, misfitathletics.com. I don't have it up right now, so I can't tell you where to go or click or all that stuff, but it is fairly intuitive. You just click on the remote coaching. You can see the pricing that's on there. You can go into the application, and that will connect you with Jen to sort of talk through what the remote coaching is like and the coach selection process and all that good stuff. Announcement number 2.
Yeah.
Equally as exciting, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah, obviously, a lot of the people that are going to be excited about this already have a remote coach at Misfit Athletics, so they'll be more excited about this one. But ladies and gentlemen, training camp is finally back.
Thank goodness.
We are doing a quarterfinals prep camp in Maine, Misfit HQ, March 12th and 13th, with the asterisk that on the 11th, we would love for you to show up and do the open workout 22.3 at Misfit Gym Portland with the crew, you know, sort of use it as that icebreaker a little bit, show up. You'll have a coach assigned to your group that's going to warm you up, talk points of performance, all that good stuff. And you want to know what? There's no reason why we can't open the doors Thursday night if you get here early for the final 22.3 Sherb v. Hunter throwdown. So if you get some heckling going,
in place of Hunter v. Sherb, show up Thursday evening.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too.
Yeah, wait, you sure?
Dude, I'm going to wear a suit and slick my hair back. We're going to get stands. We're going to get bleachers. I'm going to get crazy sweaty. I'm going to have Ted dump like a gallon of water on my head. I'm going to walk out. 22.3 is no. So training camp is back. We need to get it up on the site so that you guys can go in and purchase it, but we figured we would let you know as soon as possible so you can start blocking off your calendar. I will tell you that we arrived at this decision of where during the in-season that this camp belongs the most based on the effect that we can have on the most people and what their goal is specifically that are following the website. So quarterfinals truly is the games for a lot of people. So you're going into it and you're thinking about it from the standpoint of either the highest level of competition that I'm going to get to go to, or I might make it to semifinals. I have a outside shot at semifinals, and that's the person that we can truly move the needle for you through lectures and movement prep and workouts and seeing you work out. Like that's something that we've done in the past that we know that we can do. Most of the original Misfit CrossFit Games athletes were not Games athletes and then came to a training camp. And when we can connect the dots from the product that we put online to in person and really sort of complete that ecosystem, something really powerful happens.
I would say one thing to add to that, Drew, too, is that some of these athletes weren't like the very next year they qualified for regionals or the games. These are people who are seeing the fruits of their labor pay off a year or two down the road.
Yep.
And a lot of times one of the common questions we get is like, I don't think I'm competitive. Like, should I show up? And if you want to learn and you want to get better at fitness and you enjoy being around the people who like to work out a lot, like this is the right spot for you. And that is something that's comes to, across my desk, or people ask me questions often about camp. Like, I'm so-and-so of this many places in the open. Should I still show up? And the answer is absolutely. If you like working out, you want to find a way to get a little bit better, this camp is for you, whether you are trying to step on that podium at the CrossFit Games or you just really like exercise and you want to get better at, toes to bar snatches or anything, the fun things that we do on our blog.
Yeah, and I think that's what's most exciting about it being quarterfinals prep camp is on the left side of the spectrum, someone who would love to make it to quarterfinals. Perfect camp for you.
Absolutely.
And then if you're the type of athlete that, you're not really sure what your goals are, when you show up and you're coached in person and you're doing training pieces with some of the best athletes in the world, something happens. There's a change there. There's a level of motivation. There's a level of the power of possibility, a lot of things that go into it. So, we are going to continue to have more training camps. We're going to start to try and do some more of the train with style. So you would show up and do, some semifinals prep and some games prep with some top level athletes. Misfit summer camp will be coming back, but the very first iteration of sort of getting back into the swing of things is going to be quarterfinals prep camp, March 12th and 13th.
Oh yeah.
I can't fucking wait. I can't wait to see everybody again.
Time.
It's been too damn
We just
long.
haven't scratched this itch in so long. I mean, we tried to do something like this, during the midst of the pandemic at our gym, and, our members who had qualified for quarterfinals were, it was a little bit weird. Like, what does that mean this year? What does quarterfinals mean? And, one of the things that I think it was you, Hunter, that was like, we should probably do something for those folk because, it's been this opportunity. It's people who worked really hard throughout the year and like don't have that event or that thing that they're shooting for that isn't just like, I was fittest in class today. So, I feel like that was kind of the impetus to remind ourselves how much fun it is to coach people in person. And, I've been thinking about ever since that day, like how much fun that just one afternoon was and what it meant for those athletes and the amount of progress that we were able to create in just a small group of 20 or so. Like we're looking forward to doing that to a much bigger group come March.
True. All right. Now that we're 6 hours into the episode, we're going to start talking about what the episode's about.
Good.
Today we're talking about turtles and rabbits.
I love turtles.
You are a fucking turtle.
This is actually a really good podcast topic, and we got, as with most of our topics, they come from listeners. So I'm at Misfit Coach on Instagram. Slide into those DMs. Let me know what you thought about this episode and what you'd like to hear next time. People actually do that. They slide in. They let us know, hey, you should have this guest on, or, this is the thing that I'm struggling with. And what's cool about it is sometimes it's a games level athlete. Sometimes it's a coach. Sometimes it's someone who's just getting started. Like there's a lot of different perspectives that come into it. So turtles and rabbits. Today we're talking about the slow twitch athlete and the fast twitch athlete and what these athletes can do to become the other, maybe some of the stuff that gets into the headspace of these athletes. We joked before that Sherb's finally going to get to use his $1 trillion student debt master's degree on the podcast. Dope. Sherb, tell us from a technical standpoint what a turtle and a rabbit is.
So the two categories, you have the turtle, whose body is primarily slow twitch muscle fibers, your type 1 muscle fibers. And then you have the hare or the rabbit, who is typically more of the type 2 or fast twitch muscle fiber athlete. And, the way that I like to explain this to people is that you're probably going to fall in one of two camps. You typically like longer, steadier workouts for a long period of time that you can kind of just keep going, or the opposite. You wish every single workout was sub 10 seconds and you could just show out with your heavy lifts, your big box jumps, your big sets of muscle ups, things of that nature. And yeah, there are people who live in the middle, but there are, very clear defining characteristics of both type of athletes. And, it's a good chance that when you're listening to this, you kind of lean towards one more so than the other. And, without getting too deep into the weeds about the entire topic, is that no matter where you are on that spectrum of tortoise to hare, there's nothing to say that you can't start to create the adaptation that pushes you in the other direction, noticing that that's probably the bigger hole in your game currently.
And it's also important to note that everybody, we all have a proportion of both muscle fiber types. So it's just a whichever is dominant is, like you said, what makes you probably more comfortable with something more explosive, like shorter duration versus like something slower and longer.
I was thinking like an equalizer, like slider. You can just slide left or right, and that's kind of where you live.
I was thinking pumpkin cheesecake.
Me too.
Like my slice is my fast twitch. Everyone else's slice is my slow twitch.
God
Did
damn
you
it.
break his brain?
Damn it.
Hunter's calculating over there. Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep. So I think it's really easy for people to identify which one, but I would like to throw out some use cases that will sort of explain it. The only thing that can cloud this picture in my brain is the size of the athlete. So we will have situations where it is, you are a tortoise, but you're gigantic. So it looks like you are, what's the other one?
A hare.
Hare. I don't
Rabbit,
know.
fast
You
twitch.
screwed me up.
Tortoise
You
and
switched
hare
the name.
is what I'm using.
Turtles and
that
rabbits.
old
Turtles and-
Aesop fable.
Turtles and rabbits. So it seems like on the assault bike specifically in a lot of cases or other machines that you are a rabbit when in actuality you are not. So it's really more in those scenarios, typically that bigger athlete that does fairly well on the assault bike. If they are a turtle, they don't like to talk to you about their back squat. They don't like to talk about the snatch and the clean and jerk and things of that nature. And again, some of that could be a range of motion issue, but you're typically not going to find someone who is a fast twitch athlete where your size plays too much into whether you have that power output or not.
Yeah, I'd agree with that statement. Yeah, it's the first thing that just comes to mind when I hear that argument is just like, it's not solely upon your body size. It's not solely upon like one single effort. It's an amalgamation of your entire training, and a lot of what you do and a lot of workouts you like to do and the workouts you excel in versus the ones you don't excel in tell you a lot about your muscle fibers. So, one of my favorite ways to explain this to athletes, because one of our favorite ways to haze athletes is with bike sprints, and we typically don't.
We don't haze athletes. We
don't-
train them.
Same thing. We typically don't do one single effort. It's usually multiple bouts. And we want to make sure that we give the opportunity for athletes to create the adaptation, which is to get to that high end, super high output, use all your type 2 fiber situation. And the conversation I like to have with athletes after that's all done is that who here really thought that this was terrible? And all the hands go up. I'm like, great. Who here found that it was really hard to repeat their effort over and over again? And about half the room raises their hands. Their first bike sprint of 15 calories was 15 seconds, and their third one was 45 seconds. And then you have the other group of athletes that are all like, I went 25 seconds for all 3 rounds. And that provides a talking point for me. It says, if you're in that camp where you can do one really impressive bike sprint, but you don't have endurance, congratulations, you have type 2 muscle fibers, and you need to work on your endurance a bit more to make sure that you can continue to repeat those efforts over and over again. Or you live on the other side of the argument where you don't have one single impressive time, but people are looking around like, what is the fucking sorcery you're using to be able to do that same amount of output round after round after round? That athlete's a little bit more type 1. So, for me, you can use one single event like a bike sprint as a way of kind of getting an idea of which athlete you are, but it does require a bigger picture, and in different parts of your body, you're going to respond different ways. And I think we're going to get into that rabbit hole here as we do this. But to me,
Get it?
Yeah.
Rabbit hole?
Hair hole?
Hair hole?
Can I say that? No.
You may not.
But you can use
Podcast canceled.
but you can use these type of stimuli to figure out like, all right, I'm not sure. I'm hearing what they say, but how do I know? That's, to me, one of my favorite ways to explain an athlete, kind of a way to suss that out.
For me, what I think is easier, but it doesn't matter, is kind of like a barbell type test. And this is a pretty common one that you'll find in like online or in textbooks, and it's like I think it's called like the 80% test or the 80% rule. Basically, you do a 1 rep max. I think you rest like 10 or 15 minutes, and then you take 80% of that and do a max set. And if you fall short of like 5, or I think it's 8 reps, if you're less than 8 reps, then you're probably a faster twitch athlete. If you're getting more than 8 reps, you're a little bit more on the slow twitch side, because maybe whether it's like your strength ceiling is low, or your capacity to lift a higher percentage of your max capacity is high. I guess, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, doesn't matter, but that can indicate to you where you're more inclined. Yeah. So if you can hammer out a high percentage of a lift for like a lot of reps, there's a good chance that you're more of a slow twitch athlete versus a fast twitch athlete who fatigues. They can super high power output for a few reps, but that drops off really quickly.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and save you some money. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Pure Spectrum CBD. We just got through one holiday. They are fun. They are stressful, though. We're getting ready to head into more holidays, and I don't know if you're like me, but you may or may not have done your shopping yet, and we'll have to do it in person and hate that. And really what I'm saying
You're
here,
gonna take proper pre and pure spectrum before
yes,
you go to the mall.
after a day with these two, I have to take my pure spectrum.
Guy, come on.
And well, listen, that's the aftermath. So that's a little bit of a nod. To do the whole holiday thing and lots of small talk and all that, I have to take the tincture before I even show up.
You
Put one bottle in each
One bottle in each one.
Just let it soak
All
in.
jokes aside, every single day, Pure Spectrum CBD, I do 2 droppers of the 2,500 milligram black label. If I'm at work, I use it sort of as that down regulator. If I'm going into a social situation so that I can handle it, I use it sort of as that, all right, we can keep things nice and even. Everything's fine. You're going to be great. And you can save by using the code word Misfit at purespectrumcbd.com.
We also brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com. Use the code word Kiala to save 10% and donate 10% to the Kiala Foundation. Good news for all you misfits out there. Unlike years past where you cleaned us out on Black Friday, we prepared accordingly, and there are still some great styles. So when you go to the gym next week and you realize everyone's wearing cool clothes and your shit's outdated, you can head to sharpentheaxeco.com.
Idiot.
Use the code word Kiala and get yourself some new swag.
All right, for those of you on the other end of the day and need to get a little jacked up before your morning workout, you can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save, and make sure you try that new Proper Pre. The SugarWOD here, we're a little bit more of the, hey, not a whole lot of caffeine past noon. So if you're in that camp, the stim-free version will still get you jacked up, whether you're trying to do something super explosive or go long like Drew will probably say later on in the podcast about how his Proper Pre cut those splits down
Shit
big
is
time.
wild.
And then, of course, for your post-workout, you've got the Proper Recovery. And if you're going to be on the road, we've got some travel packs in both milk and dark chocolate.
Ayo.
So you don't need to bring the travel hockey bag. Is there a travel version of a hockey bag? It's kind of like carrying a wheeled bag versus a
It's just
a
being that
regular
person
bag.
that has to bring a big enough bag to put all your supplements in,
Yeah.
instead of being normal.
And then you're flying, and then you get pulled over by TSA because you got all this white powder, and you're just like, it's creatine,
Try
I
it.
swear. Anyway, head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on your first order.
Last but not least, if you want to support this podcast and what we do, you can head to misfitathletics.com or the SugarWOD marketplace and try our programming for 2 weeks for free. If you are an affiliate member, or if you're an affiliate owner, you can head to teammisfit.com or the SugarWOD marketplace to find your affiliate programming needs. All right, back to the show. Before we get into what the hell you're supposed to do about this, I think it's just important to put out there that we have a much higher concentration of slow twitch fibers in our lower body, and sort of, in the midline and in our supporting musculature that holds our skeleton up. And the easiest, we joke about it at training camp every time, but you need to develop your fast twitch fibers in your upper body, because we don't walk around all day. We don't bear crawl, we don't handstand walk, we don't do all that. Actually saw
You mean develop slow twitch?
Yeah. So we don't have the ability to spend the same amount of time under tension with our upper body that we do with our lower body. And that explains why you can grind out lower body reps, your air squats, your lunges, whatever it is. And then when your grip goes away, or your pressing goes away, or your pulling goes away, you're like,
The easiest
what's happening?
example I
It's
like
gone.
is Murph. It's like, what do your air squats look like versus your push-ups when you're doing like sets of 1 to 3 push-ups and you're just like slowly plugging away at air squats? Like, there's your use case for upper versus lower body.
True. So keep that in mind, just because you might fall into one camp or the other a little bit more or less. The lower body tells the story, it shows the picture much more clear typically with an athlete than the upper body does. Another thing that's super important here is that we typically feel that whichever side we're on, the other side has it easier than we do. And really all that means is both sides are wrong, right? So
you go tell your story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the musings that people liked more than almost any of the other ones was just, if the grass is greener on the other side, water your own. And that's what we're talking about in this episode. We want to go in and say, okay, you look across the fence, you see the greener grass in the neighbor's yard, but they're missing sort of what you have and vice versa. And the best thing that you could possibly do is, instead of trying to turn yourself into a different person, is to sort of create that hedge and go in and do everything that you can to, sort of shore up your weaknesses. But we don't leap over the fence and stop developing, what makes you unique and what, sort of your superpower is. Because especially in CrossFit, the way that the scoring system works, you need to go in and win workouts. So if you are a rabbit and you're consistently only trying to win, the turtle events, it's probably not going to happen. You might be able to take yourself from 30th to 10th, but you're not going to get to first place. That's not going to happen. So don't overcorrect when you listen to this episode and think to yourself, okay, the only thing I'm doing now is I'm only going to do the volume cycle back squat, or I'm only going to do Maffetone method, whatever it is. I think it's important to sort of lay down that that's not going to help you as much as you might think.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, something we've talked about in previous podcasts, but whenever you get the opportunity to do something you are actually good at, you can create a higher level adaptation because you are good at those things, and you can go really, really hard here. So what can happen early on is, if you overcorrect and only do the things that you're bad at, you might feel like you aren't moving at the same intensity that you normally do, or you're not able to kind of keep the things that you're already good at kind of still sharp while you're working on something else. So to me, the biggest thing here is, prioritize, use your each week, each day, each phase to prioritize things that are very specific to you, but don't totally neglect the things that you're already good at. You need to get those back still in your programming so you can still have those high outputs, those high intensity workouts that really do help move the needle. Just don't have yourself stuck in the mindset of, I always have to do it this exact way. It always has to be my long aerobic piece, and then my accessory work, and then my lift. You got to mix that stuff up, because again, some days you're going to garner more intensity with those movements you're good at, and other days you're working on something very specific. And, there isn't one perfect blueprint, but if you're prioritizing what you need most at the front end of your day, week, phase, you're probably going to get a little bit more from your training than you otherwise would.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's information for you as an athlete. And this is something we also talked about, that over the course of the phase, we've noticed, and this is probably over the past few months as well, the athlete IQ of you all listening and the followers is continuing to increase. So this should be another kind of piece of information to use, because at the end of the day, even within a single workout, there's going to be a time where it is more beneficial to be a slower athlete, and it is more beneficial to be a faster athlete, literally within a workout, because of the number of variables and implements and movements that we see in the sport. So it's more just it might flip the light bulb, turn the light bulb on as to why certain things are easier than others, versus what's actually a weakness, or what do I just need to focus a little bit more on to improve my fitness? Because we're also not necessarily seeking this 50-50 split of fast and slow twitch. It's identify which one you are, and then use that information. If it's a competition or a workout, how do you maximize what you're good at in order to do the best that you can?
Athletes need to know what their bias is for a period of time.
Right.
It doesn't have to be indefinitely, but if you're going into a new phase of programming, a new block of programming, you need to know what you were trying to bias. And it's typically only going to be one thing. You can use multiple tools to do that, but it's typically only going to be one thing. Before we get into what each side should do to improve, the final thing that I will say that is good news, but also puts the responsibility on you as an athlete. We know way too much about epigenetics now, and sort of what human beings can do within their lifetime, even as they get older, to manipulate their health and well-being and performance. It's not too late.
Never.
It is. It's never too late for you to go in and do this. And I don't even know why the CrossFit community needs to bring this up. Take a look at the fucking Masters community. Give me a break.
Yeah.
So impressive. It's insane how impressive the Masters community is. And all you need to, go on their Facebook and click 3 years ago and see the difference between those people and think to yourself, oh, I'm this way and this is the way that's going to be. That's not true.
No, my favorite conversation point with someone who's coming to the gym more as an affiliate athlete is that CrossFit is redefining what it means to be older. It really is. If you were to look up, 20 years ago in a textbook, aging, and you pull up a picture of someone who's 60 years old, you're going to see Granny in her walker. You're going to see Granny on the couch or Granny in her recliner, just looking like she doesn't move all that much. She's got a nice set of, crocheting needles in her lap. She's making a nice scarf for Hunter.
You have, what
set
kind of dictionary do you
of
have? I need one of these.
But now
All your words have pictures.
yeah, I only read books with pictures, Drew. Come on. That's the only way I can read. But if you look at now, you have people who are now 60 years old and they're climbing 20-foot climbing ropes in the middle of a soccer field.
They make you feel old when you're half their age.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to me, that is so amazing. And the best part of this is that even at, 50, 60, 70 years old, you still have an ego. And you say to yourself, hey, what's the worst that could happen if I fucking take a shot? And look at these masters. Look at someone like Dave Hippensteel, who's, 65 years old and can do like
108.
1,000 muscle ups in a row. It's like that man is what you consider, elderly. He would normally be in a nursing home at that age or be getting close to going to nursing home. And this dude's rocking out muscle ups and they got a six pack. Like, to me, that blows my mind. And it should hopefully encourage you or inspire you to be like, why the fuck? Why couldn't I do that? Why couldn't I be that person? And the answer is, yeah, you might not want to live the lifestyle that Dave Hippensteel lives, but if you decide to take some of his habits to heart and take a change, you can dramatically change yourself. Your book is never written until it's over. So, take a swing.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's a blessing and a curse when the responsibility is laid right back in your lap, where you're looking for a secret or you're looking for a woe is me story. No offense, but it's good news that you can turn yourself into whatever the hell you want to, but it's your responsibility.
Yep.
You have to go in and put in the work to do that.
Simple, not easy.
All right, what do you guys want to start with? Fast twitch to become slow twitch or slow twitch to become fast twitch?
Oh, let's do the first one.
What was it?
I don't know.
Fast to slow.
Fast to slow.
Fast to slow. Okay, I am
Use
qualified
case
to.
N equals 1.
I'm
Speaking
qualified
now.
to speak on this topic, and I will use my N equals 1 just to lay out there the fact that it isn't over for me or you. So
Well, before you get started,
Yeah.
didn't you do because you can test for muscle fiber breakdown,
correct,
right?
Yeah,
Did
you can do a muscle
that?
biopsy.
Yeah.
No, I have not done that, but we joked
Okay.
before. So Dr. Andy Galpin does a lot of the biopsy work, and he had a UFC athlete in at one point that was like a 90-10 split of fast to slow, and I felt like I had a kindred spirit finally. In the gym, what it looks like is most people see my scores on the board and assume that I can't fucking do anything. That's some giant slob or whatever. And then they watch me exercise and want to know why I'm resting so much because the movements look so easy.
You're citing like Coop's mindset every single class he sees you in.
Like people truly like believe that I'm not trying in a Metcon because it looks easy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't know. My heart rate's like 199
Here,
right
put this
now.
pillow
but-
over your face and try to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. But so as of recently, so we've been, sort of playing around with and programming some variation of the Maffetone method since like 2013, 2014. And only recently have I personally committed to, because I can't lift as much weight as I used to with, back injuries and stuff. I'm going to go all in on this and do it. I basically do it every other day and see what happens. So the N equals 1 is at the exact same heart rate. I'd have to check specifically 4 or 5 months ago. My average wattage at a 145 heart rate on the C2 bike was 100 even. I did it Sunday and my average wattage was 180. And it was actually at a little bit of a lower heart rate in terms of an average there. So what the only point of me saying that is now when I'm in a Metcon and I would normally, my legs would be so locked up that I feel like I can't do anything at all. I can't row, I can't bike, I can't air squat, I can't do any of these things. It just doesn't really feel that way anymore, honestly, ever. I don't get to the point now where I feel like I'm like locking up and, you sort of have the Eggert walk from Men in Black. I literally never feel that way anymore. And the only thing that I will say that is important about this that you guys already touched on earlier is, let's say, sure, Noel gets you $10,000 worth of tools from Home Depot
What do I do with those?
for Christmas.
Shoes from Reebok. Got it.
Can some man tell me what I do with that?
Well, that's the point of this story. So Sherb goes under the tree. Yes, he has all these tools now. He's got to start fucking using them. So I don't stay on the bike forever, and that's the only thing that I do. I need to go translate this into, the reason it works is because I can localize those muscle fibers in my lower half and then go out. But I need to mix that with a ton of other movements, with a much higher heart rate, with all of these different sort of energy demands to go in and do that. That's the version of me using the new tools that I have. Once I get those tools, again, I have to go out into the true GPP world and not the, how is my leg endurance when I'm not breathing heavy? That's such an ultra specific thing. Right. I need to be able to go out and do those things. And I think that is one of the more important parts of this. You can go in and make serious changes to your musculature, but then you have to go out and express those things within CrossFit workouts to then really connect the dots and have it do something to your scores.
Yeah, to me, don't get me wrong, like the benefit of doing some of these longer sessions is super important for you. We were actually talking about another podcast that we both listened to that talked about, like, if you are super deconditioned and you just get sort of in good shape, you improve like your ability to live by like 3x. Like
right.
just from getting in marginal shape. So like there is some definitely benefit of doing it regardless if you're trying to compete in the sport of fitness or not. But to me, that's kind of a shame. It's like the person who has a really awesome 1 rep max lift, but the second you introduce a little bit of heart rate spike, they can't lift anymore. And I know that's the other athlete we were talking about a minute ago, but to me, you have this opportunity to develop something. You want to then take that information, all that adaptation you've created, and put it into your training to see where it pays off. And still, if you can find that line, and one of the things that we talk about, you're never a finished project. You might notice that like all of your C2 bike work has made it so things like air squats and running feel a lot better, but somehow box jumps still don't feel good, or maybe pistols still feel off, or something like that. That is cause for you to go back and experiment and go, all right, what about this stimulus can I change or make different, or I haven't just not put enough time in yet to create that adaptation. But it's exciting for me to hear your experience with that, because I had a similar experience with the C2 bike. So like during the pandemic, that's basically all I did was C2 bike all the time. And then the gym finally opened back up and we were able to like rip on assault bikes and have a nice fun class. And typically what I would say gives me the most trouble is not my breathing, it's my legs. And having done all that C2 bike, now it's lungs again. And it's exciting for me to be like, all right, how do I now make it shift back to my legs and play this like tug of war game back and forth? But the interesting part here is that you've now developed something. You have to then go express it, figure out where you are, and then retool. So just to me, take the information you gain when you start doing this stuff, apply it to your training, and then go back to the drawing board, go back to the training, back to the drawing board, back and forth.
I think the easiest way to explain it to a CrossFitter would be, one of the things that you can do as an athlete is to develop these muscle fibers. We have to stay below lactate threshold. Easiest way to think of that is control of breathing. Like if you want a metric of how you feel during a workout, the second you start to feel your breathing as something that you're really trying to calm yourself down, get your heart rate down, your breathing is starting to get out of control, we have pushed beyond that point. And that's where you would say, okay, so I'm going into a 20-minute AMRAP, open style, it's a triplet, it's manageable sets, you got to have that higher turnover. You are probably not going to get your best score, but you need to go through that entire workout at the same speed.
Yep.
If you are a fast twitch athlete, you need to go into it and you need to say, okay, I'm going to try to row at this. I'm going to try to have this transition. I'm trying to breathe through my toto bar. Whatever the movements are that are there, you need to be able to make it from point A to point B without these peaks and valleys the entire time trying to figure out where you're at. You then don't take that exact same example into the open, right? Like you might still be the type of athlete that needs to be 10% faster at the beginning and the end. That might still be who you are as an athlete, but what we've done is made that middle section, the 500 to 1500 in your 2K row.
Raise the floor.
Exactly. We've gone to that point. So, we've got the long slow that does that. You can do that on any machine. If you're, really struggle with your upper body endurance, we can go over to the ski erg. That's worked a ton for our athletes. You're doing the same thing. And don't worry if you're like, okay, so what exactly do I do? All of this will be in phase 4. You'll be able to go in and you'll have the option to be 1, 2, or 3 of these sessions per week, which is sort of how you decide what your bias is going to be. But I don't know, these things are so unique to explain after you've been through them. Becoming the slow twitch athlete as the fast twitch athlete, it's not that hard, but it takes an insane level of time commitment and focus within that. Like, people will get bored in the 45 to 90 minute sessions and just let it sort of disappear and fall off. You could literally go from being barely a semifinals athlete to a games athlete if you did this for an entire year.
Agreed.
But we're talking about 3 to 4 hours a week. That is a lot, and that's where people fall off, and that's what's unique about developing those slow twitch, is it's not that same CrossFitters are used to. I'm going to go into the gym, I'm going to punch myself in the face, it's going to be terrible, but then I'm going to leave and I'm going to be a little tougher, right? That does not apply to all these scenarios. Toughness stretched out over a period of time is, to me, a totally different skill.
Yeah, again, I always go back to the affiliate coach stuff because that's what I know and what I love. But you talk about an athlete and you say to them when they walk through the door the first day, congratulations, you've done the hardest thing you've done all day, and they're still in their jacket. And they're like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, I haven't even worked out or done anything yet. I'm like, you showed up. When it comes to this type of stuff, it's the exact same idea. You have to keep showing up and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and wondering why it feels like it's been 2 months and you've gained a half a second off your 15K bike. And you're like, is that good, coach? And the answer is yes, you are in the right direction. And I want to throw props out to Sophie because she is someone after the CrossFit Games that had not taken a 19th on event 1 is standing on the podium at the end of the weekend.
Yeah, you don't want to fuck with a version of Sophie that's got her slow twitch.
Easily on the podium. I'm saying like first or second. Like
right.
Emma Lawson did really well, but she'd be pushing her for that if she had just done better in that first event. So yesterday
Didn't
on
she
the
PR clean the other week too. She hasn't touched a barbell in like
she's getting
3
real
months.
strong. It's weird how that works.
What's
right?
GPP?
Yeah, what's GPP? But my point being,
Fuck
I
you say to
told
me?
to her that we're going to spend a good amount of this season getting better at the long stuff. You love the heavy barbells. I know if it's skill based, you're going to do well, and she did well at the games when that happened. And yesterday, going into that conversation of the 15/13.5K, how should this go? What my split should be? And I said, pull up your most recent long fasted cardio day, like your most recent one. And she held like a 207, and she goes, all right, this is what I got. I went, a little longer than 13K. What should I hold? And I said, let's see if we can hold 205. If you had asked her to do that a year ago, that would have been like her, 2K PR for the C2 bike. And now she can do that for upwards of like 25, 30 minutes. So to me, the hard part was convincing her that it was worthwhile doing it. But now that she's seeing it translate to, like you said, I didn't lose anything off my lifts. And all of a sudden, this place in my fitness that I had this tremendous gap amongst my competitors has narrowed a bunch. I mean, she was stoked that she was in a couple of seconds of Alexis, who is one of the toughest people I've ever met when it comes to like monostructural stuff. She'll just keep going and going and going. So to me, that was very exciting as the coach, because like that is proof in the pudding. And yes, it took a lot of patience to get there, but when you finally arrive at that spot where you cross that threshold you've been stuck at for a really long time, nothing feels better, right? If you always got what you wanted instantly, that instant gratification, you would constantly be seeking out something else. You'd never be happy. But to have the patience to sit and wait long enough and to see it come to fruition, to me as a coach, it's super cool. And to hear her be excited about it is probably the most important thing there. And I want you all to realize that when you have these long pieces, the two tough things are it's going to take a long time, and you're not going to see like, I'm not going to go from a 230 to a 140. That's not kind of improvement we're looking for. We're looking for a handful of seconds, maybe at most. But those handful of seconds, while they might not feel like very much, matter a ton, because it's not just about that one single event. It's what those sessions do for every other thing that you do in your training. And that's where it plays out the most, but may not be seen as obvious as, hey, I'm looking at my screen and it's 0.2 seconds faster than it was 2 weeks ago.
I also want to, before we move on to the other athlete, talk about how is it possible that Sophie is PRing her lifts. And this is another sort of N=1 type of situation. But for me, when you are a fast twitch athlete, you typically don't spend as much time. You don't get the same amount of time under tension that other athletes do. You don't get the same amount of rep ranges that other athletes do. And you sort of develop these larger muscle groups without the connective tissue, without the supporting musculature. What do you think happens to my midline when I go ski for an hour? Right? Connective tissue. We're connecting the dots. We're saying, okay, so we're actually one muscle in reality when we take the fascia and we go from, the bottom of the foot all the way up to our lats and traps. Like all of that stuff is supposed to be connected. And the slow twitch athlete gives themselves more time under tension. They have to brace more. They have to get into these better positions, or they're not going to be able to compete with anybody else. And then they develop all that supporting musculature, and that's why their GPP often seems so much higher. So for a fast twitch athlete to go in and say, okay, when I catch a clean funny in the bottom, or I don't have the bounce right, or something goes wrong, those slow twitch athletes live for that shit. They're going to be able to figure out how to eke out that rep, whereas the fast twitch athlete is like, well, this is normally easy. Why isn't this easy? So the idea of her taking the time to develop supporting musculature, to develop connective tissue, that is going to make her stronger, especially across the board in CrossFit. Like 100 maxes are super fun, but if you can't rep stuff out when it's really hard to brace and you can't breathe and all that, all this stuff becomes that much more important. So it's not by accident. GPP is a real thing. Rising tide raises all ships, whatever you want to say. All of this stuff is going to bleed out into other things as long as you don't become like an actual specialist.
And I would say like the other brief example before we go on was Caroline, who like I wouldn't classify her as a fast twitch athlete. She's probably somewhere in the middle, whereas like Austin is obviously super explosive. But like just last season, I don't remember when the conversation was. It might have even been on the video, but it was like she basically had done a lot of the heart rate stuff, a lot of the slower stuff, and like as the season got closer and closer, all the things started to connect. So when you're saying like, oh, my lungs don't, or my legs don't hurt, my lungs do, or you know, or for some people it's vice versa. Right. It was for her, it was like, wow, like all of this is coming together at the right time. Like neither my lungs nor my muscles hurt that bad, which just means like I can go faster. And then when Granite Games rolled around and we watched her hammer the thruster run workout, which we all kind of joked would have killed her like a week or a year or two before. Right. It was like, okay, there it is. And still her barbell, and it was, you know, because her barbell cycling is so
I would say the number one was the run thruster. And then when we did that super long machine and run workout for mock games, the split she was holding. Yeah, she was behind me by like a couple minutes overall. It was same distances. It was remarkable for, I mean, and now we're talking, you know, we brought it up before, but the size of an athlete, like at a certain point, your output on a rower and a bike, like, you know, somebody's a foot taller.
If you're 5'0", you got the levers. Like, like physics are still a thing on machines.
Yeah. So it was pretty remarkable. Okay. So slow twitch to fast twitch. I'm going to sit back for a second because I'm very interested about what you guys are going to say when it comes to this topic.
I'll start, just kind of get us going. One thing that
got some N=1s over there.
I'll tell you, we've got a lot more slow twitch athletes at kind of the lab across the street than we do ultra fast twitch. The one way that I try to communicate this to some of our athletes who are in that, like I could run my 1 mile pace for fucking 6 years straight. How do we get them to go faster? And one of the ways that we do that is like a lot of times on the blog, we've got percentage-based lifting, but also there's usually a range. And kind of back to my first anecdote of how you kind of diagnose whether you're fast or slow twitch. If we know that the athlete is slow twitch, then typically they need a either higher percentage of their lift to like maybe elicit the same demand that an otherwise kind of quote normal athlete would experience, or they need to do it for more, either not usually more reps, but faster. And it's just a development of or using like the PAP style lifting where it's like, hey, we know that the barbell speed isn't massive, but we can use a secondary movement to elicit something that has to be explosive, a kettlebell swing, a jump, something like that.
Yeah, comes to mind as you're speaking, Hunter, and kind of goes back to what Drew was saying. The hard thing with the turning a fast twitch to slow twitch is the time under tension, the time you need to spend doing this repeated action over and over again to see the intended benefit. Conversely, for this athlete who is more slow twitch looking to be fast twitch, the conversation I'm going to have a lot of them is that you need to do less. Like you need to do less overall volume. You need to do less things because a lot of those athletes that come from the I'm slow twitch, want to be fast twitch, love longer workouts. They love volume. They eat doing extra pieces for breakfast. But they can't do those pieces at set intensity that's going to allow them to create the adaptation physiologically and neurologically that allows them to become more fast twitch. So, we have some athletes, like you said, next door that are perfect use case. Those athletes, we're going back to basic physics. How do we get you to accelerate your mass at a faster speed so you create more force to create adaptation? So for a lot of this stuff, we talk about, hey, if you're a little bit more on the slow twitch side, stick on the lower side of the percentages and focus on driving with speed out of your squat rather than just standing up by any means necessary. Or the PAP is another great way. If you have someone who can't move an external object that's very heavy, very fast, well, we give them something that's a little bit lighter or smaller and say, all right, move that thing as fast as possible. So to me, the biggest way to create that change is going to be a mindset shift away from I got to do all these things to saying I got to do just a couple of things in a very specific way if I'm hoping to garner the adaptation that I'm after here. And the conversations I have with the people is like, no, like I know you like to exercise, don't do that. Seriously, you don't need that piece. This is not something that you currently need because it's going to cause interference in your ability to move faster on the other things that you're trying to do this week. And I know it's fun, you want to do that last piece, but that might affect you not today, but tomorrow, the day after that. And if you can't bring the intensity you need or the force that you need to create the adaptation for fast twitch, then you're essentially just working out, which is fine. It's fun to work out. But if you're trying to fix something specifically, you need to have a game plan. And in my expertise here, in my experience, is you need to do less, but you need to do it at a very specific cadence or style.
I think maybe the tagline for yours is
everything on purpose.
No, it's like it's the tough part about this athlete is a lot of it comes down to your specific effort when it comes to those sorts of things. Like you said, it's like the different, let's say we're going to give them a Metcon or some sort of interval where we're asking them to go hard. Maybe their time is only slightly faster. What doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it was like, why I tried so much harder and I didn't go that much faster. Well, a lot of times for that athlete, the effort itself creates that adaptation. It's not as much, about the clock when it comes to those sorts of things. It's like, did I do this set fast? Like we've got one athlete who we did the one, if you listeners remember a year or two ago, we did like one max set of deadlifts and it was like at 315 or something at the affiliate. It was a lower weight, but this athlete just grinded out like 40 reps, but it took like 3 minutes. It was like, I'm just going to hold on to the barbell and like the reps are going to be so incredibly slow, but like I can keep doing it. Like, so why am I going to stop? And that athlete, it's like, okay, the next time you do that, like the barbell is not allowed to stop moving. Like when the barbell stops moving, you're done. And that's like, that's a much more subjective metric of improvement versus like, a numerical score or something like that. But a lot of times for those athletes, that's what's necessary to kind of bridge the gap.
To me, the mindset, the conversation I have as the coach is like, you have to get away from that exercise FOMO for a little bit. Like you're not doing everything that everybody else is doing exactly the same way. In this situation, taking a 20-minute AMRAP and turning it into do 2 rounds, rest 1 minute until you worked for 20 minutes is a great way to create adaptation. Or if we go back to the assault bike again, if you have an athlete who is struggling to create the adaptation, rather than fixating on a number or a distance for, hey, you have to get this many calories or that many meters, say, your only objective today is to see how high you can get your wattage 4 times with whatever rest you need in between. Basically, it's taking a mindset shift that takes you away from I got to do what everybody else is doing to like, I got to focus on me for a little bit and do the things I need to do to be able to create that adaptation. And oftentimes that means doing something that's pretty different from what everybody else is doing. But what you just said is a great way for an athlete to understand that like, it's not that we don't want you to try. Like that's not the idea at all. Yeah. It's that you're not trying in the way that's going to create the adaptation that you're after. And that's what I'm trying to help you find. Yeah, my job is to help reframe the way you're thinking. Like we were talking about earlier with remote coaching, one of the best reasons for a remote coach is they're going to help you think about training in a way that maybe you don't currently think about it. That's another example because the athlete's like, I'm doing more reps. More reps is good, right, coach? And it's like, in a big picture macro world, yeah, more reps is great, but not great for what you're trying to try to do with your training or the adaptation you want or to get that goal you're after. So let's think about it this way instead. And to me, that's a great way to have an athlete shift their mind from like just get the best score in the gym to get better at something I'm not very good at right now.
So the most successful athletes that I've had at the CrossFit Games all fell into this category. So my purview is, I don't know, roughly 8 years of trying to manipulate this situation. I am trying to increase their ceiling in as many places as possible. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a few different ways. So right now, specifically, Luca is on a 20-week squat program. Okay. Most people are like, are you insane? How can you keep it together for that long when you're at that level and you have that sort of mental toughness? Yes, you absolutely can. But this is for the athletes that struggle with that back squat, but are always program hopping, and I got to do small off, and then I got to do this, and then I got to do that, and my legs don't work, and I can't do anything else. So basically you are starting at 10s and working all the way down to doubles. And the idea is at the end of 20 weeks, within sets and reps, you do like 90 to 100% all for a double that entire time. Now, no one that has finished this program, and that's a big if, no one that has finished this program has ever not done that double.
But you mean downloaded it, right? Just downloaded and looked at it once?
Yeah.
All right, just a second.
So what am I trying to do there?
Looked at that like 7 or 8 times.
I know that if that 1 rep max becomes a 2 rep max, that I've moved that 1 rep max out somewhere into another place, and that within a workout, within a squat clean ladder, a snatch ladder, whatever it is, we're continuing to make it more and more possible that once they hit that sticking point, that they're going to be able to stand up, that they're going to be able to do this or that. So I look at each individual place where they are getting stuck, where they feel like they're getting stuck, and I want to get that, just exactly what you just said, that moment in time. I want that power output to increase. That's all I'm looking for. If we continue to say, I can only do 1600 on the bike, and now I've done 1650, and now I've done 1675, and we can understand that this is an iterative process, just like the one for the fast twitch athletes trying to figure that stuff out. If we have these plans to go in and say, my power output's going to increase on all of the things that I can't seem to hang on, then they're going to be able to operate in a totally different band. They're still not going to be the best out there within that machine, but there's a pretty good chance they're going to catch that person that gets way out ahead towards the end of the workout. So I'm looking at each individual thing that this slow twitch dominant athlete struggles with, and I'm moving the ceiling. Again, that momentary ceiling, how powerful can you be in a single moment? And I want to measure it, and I want to move it just one tick up, one tick up, one tick up. It 100% works. It gets them to start believing in what they're trying to get better at. Because what happens with so many people is they see, Sherv's got the little, busting out the,
if I can find it. Yeah.
busting out the little by little on his shirt there. But once an athlete goes from the mindset of, I can't do what you can do, fuck this, to getting closer, I'm getting closer, I'm getting closer, that's when you're going to be able to make that change. I would say this one is much more mental than the other one. So many people who want to be strong, who want to have that flash in the pan, 1 rep max thing, get fixated on that they aren't that and don't try to bridge that gap. They don't go in and say, okay, you know what? I am going to try to improve my snatch. I'm going to do a 50-week peaking phase on my snatch. Ooh. It's crazy to say something like that, but you're telling me that you can't add a quarter of a pound a month or something like that to your snatch? Nobody believes that if you worked on it that much. So for me, it sounds simple, but I'm trying to move your absolute power output ceiling, because I know that where you operate within a Metcon is slowly going to increase within that. I'm able to go in and say, here are the issues. Let's pick them out. You have to have a metric. It's the old quote, what gets measured gets managed. Like, I need to know what your max power output is. I need to know your 1 rep max back squat, and we are going to work on those things to move them. Because even though your 1 rep max is still, I'm going to be able to put an hourglass to it and, measure, it's going to take 6 seconds for you to stand up. You don't think you're going to be more powerful with your slow 440 versus your slow 380, like that doesn't make any sense. We're going to be able to put in the level of power output you need in an endurance-based sport by measuring and getting that ceiling to go up and up and up.
Yeah. I think if you're like trying to kind of understand this kind of came into my head. If you're thinking of like just kind of like a wave graph, we've got like the peaks and the troughs like that. For that fast twitch athlete, we're trying to raise the ceiling, or I'm sorry, trying to raise the floor. So like the bottom, like that bottom output, like no matter how sad you're feeling, like you can always hold this on the machine. For example, if you're a fast twitch athlete, or I'm sorry, a slow twitch athlete, that floor is already pretty high. It's like I can work at a like moderate output for a really long time. We're trying to raise the ceiling a little bit. So it's that in between place where most of us live anyway. But if you know that you're, disparate in one or the other, it's
Bro,
like,
are you telling people to flatten the curve right now?
flatten the curve. No, don't fucking
Wait,
get the curve, ramp
does
the
that work?
curve up. I don't know. Yeah.
All right,
2 more weeks. Only
But
2 more.
really though, it's for either person. We're either lifting that spot or bringing that other spot down.
Yeah.
Like that's seems simplified, but if you understand what we're talking about, hopefully you do, it's very powerful. Like knowing that, like, yeah, I am still a little bit slow compared to this person, compared to this other person, but then in CrossFit, you always move on to something where your skill set comes back into play and theirs
literally
doesn't.
like, oh, next movement, like ball's back in my court, like advantage me again. It's
Right.
Like
Like we did the strict handstand push-ups in class the other day.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get off the rower. I'm not going to lie. But then I caught a lot of people doing strict handstand push-ups. So
and everybody else caught up on the rower, and here we.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
That didn't happen. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yo, strict handstand push-ups and handstand walking is not fun.
Delightful combo. I
That
heard
is
rave
not
reviews.
fun.
When was that?
So what we did on Monday was 5 deadlifts, 15 strict Ds,
Oh,
5 deadlifts,
yeah.
50 deadlift, 50 foot handstand walk.
Everybody got sad.
Yeah, it worked.
Got a 5 deadlift, 5-second break between being upside down.
It's great.
You're welcome.
All right, you each get one of the recaps. Hunter, you are a slow twitch athlete. What do you need to do to get faster?
Be more
Quick.
explosive. Do things fast. No, so I'm slow twitch. I'm trying to get faster. One, you could take advantage of like right now on the blog, we've got the back squat speed work. Like awesome metric. I would say for that, you would want to be maybe on the lower end of the percentages in order to move a barbell faster. Okay. So like one of the most cited and like basically the strongest gym in the world, West Side, those super powerful athletes are using anywhere from like 20 to 50% of their 1 rep max and just moving it as fast as possible for the purpose of explosiveness. So moving a lighter weight faster and then pairing it, with that explosive movement when you're in kind of the confines of a lifting session is a good way to get stronger. If it's a more maximal lifting session, then you might be on the upper end of the percentage work. If it's 3x3 at 85 to 95%, you might be one of those fucking weirdos that everybody hates, that you get to rep out 95% of your 1 rep.
And then you're ready for the Metcon and I'm in a coffin somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And then when it comes to the conditioning stuff and maybe the more CrossFit specific stuff, the example that I gave with that like 1 max set of deadlifts sort of thing is we can kind of extrapolate that out to, hey, if there's a set of 15 thrusters in the workout, you don't get to hang out with the barbell overhead for 15 seconds like Rich Froning and then bring it down in order to stay unbroken. It's, hey, you need to be continuously moving the barbell and maybe you need to scale it. That's another like a brief little aside is like, again, like the weights and reps that are written on the blog are written for a lot of people. And if you are one of those athletes, you might need to go down in weight, not necessarily because you need to, but in order to get comfortable cycling a barbell, cycling a gymnastics movement, like a strict handstand push-up or a
Learn to be
pull-up
fast.
or something like that, do them fast. And that's as good of a place to start as any. On the machines too, you gotta go hard. You gotta pay attention.
You gotta
to
sacrifice the back end of your workout.
Pay attention to that maximal output sacrifice a little bit, be willing to
Know your
go.
ceiling and try to go above it just a little bit.
Also, like, if you're concerned, if your ego is so big that you're concerned about coming out so hot that you're gonna be screwed later on, remember that the fact that that's you means that later on in the workout, you are still going to be feeling a hell of a lot better than somebody else who's in the pain cave in 15 minutes into a 20-minute AMRAP.
All right. Fast twitch going to slow twitch. First thing I'd say is pick something that you are considered weakest at. I would find whatever slow twitch movement, running, skiing, rowing, whatever it is, pick that movement and then make a plan for at least 6 weeks of work on that and see how you get better at that. And the protocol that I'd look for you to do would be exactly what you talked about a minute ago. You can use a wearable to figure out what your right heart rate, or you can use the Maffetone method to do that. And you repeat the same effort.
Which is 180 minus your age.
180 minus your age. You repeat the same effort for 2 weeks in a row with the goal in the second week to go ahead and go a little bit further without a traumatic change in your heart rate from week 1 to week 2. And then you up the duration a little bit higher, or distance. It can be either one. Another 5 or 10 minutes, and you work through that. And what you'll see across the entire span of that is that you are able to go at a faster pace overall, going even longer distances at a heart rate that is the same or lower because you put the work in. Now, the hard part for all of you is going to be convincing yourself to do this for an extended period of time, and the fact that these sessions feel quote unquote easy. You know, one of the things you might see in the CrossFit community are your CrossFit Games hopefuls watching a movie as they do something like this. And I know this is something that you do occasionally, is you'll put something on that's either informational where you're trying to learn something because you know you're not going to be in this heart rate zone that prevents you from focusing, or you put something on that's a little bit more for just personal enjoyment. And if that convinces you early on to sit on the machine and do it for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes, great. That's a great place to get started. Now, do I want an athlete doing that in perpetuity? No, I think eventually you should be very focused and allow yourself to sit there and, really be in tune with what's going on in your body and being present in the moment. But early on, find whatever allows you to participate for an extended period of time and make a plan and making a commitment with either solo or with a buddy or two and say, hey, twice a week we're going to do this, or 3 times a week we're going to do this. It really depends on your deficiency with the thing. But I do agree with you that most of the research says that about 3 hours a week is what you need to really make a dramatic change in this. But just know that even a little bit of practice is still going to move the needle for you. And that if you can't commit 3 hours a week and you can only commit an hour, do the hour. And maybe eventually you can build up to 90 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours of work. But to me, the biggest thing that you have to focus on here is being very in tune with how your body is responding to the stimulus you're presenting on itself, and just make the commitment to keep doing it, because that's going to be the hardest thing for this athlete, is continuing to show up on the days where you just don't feel like it, or your ass is sore from 2 days ago when you sat for 60 minutes, and saying, you know what, I am going to pull those bike shorts on, I'm going to ride again because I know this is what's going to make the difference. That to me is the hard part here. It's not the actual physical execution of the work, it's convincing yourself to continue to do the work.
I want to add for that athlete, what were you? Fast to slow is like, okay, so you gave a really good starting point for something more like aerobic and machine based. When it comes to like gymnastics and the barbell stuff, like time under tension is now your friend, whereas a fast twitch athlete wants to get their work done fast and then like run away and recover. Like you kind of have to attack that with time under tension. So if it's a barbell lift, maybe it's a tempo and pause work and stuff like that. If you're somebody who's like, oh, I can do a set of 20 muscle ups, and then after that, like I have to rest 4 hours before I do a set of 2, maybe it's repeated super small sets to kind of build more of a kind of endurance focus for those gymnastics movements. And
I will say this, the reason I went with machines there is that what's really nice about a machine is there's a lower skill component to it. So some of these other things.
Sure.
So one of the things that Drew actually talked about in here is like, but what if I did an AMRAP, but I held this very exact specific cadence from round 1 to the end? Well, a big part of what happens in Metcons are there going to be things that are skill related that definitely neurological fatigue plays a factor in, and that you might not be able to participate and hang that same round from start to finish, which is why we love machines. It allows you to localize one specific set of muscle group, upper body, lower body, and have an opportunity to present a stimulus that doesn't require a whole lot of skill to continue with.
Yeah, and the machine stuff is kind of like the baseline that will help the things that I just talked about, but like if you're looking for the additional crossover to barbell and gymnastic stuff, the time under tension is kind of your friend. And it's basically the same on the bike. It's time under tension.
Yep.
All right, I got two final thoughts. The first one is
You get two?
when when you are talking about this world of mental toughness, you need to understand that if you have it on one end of the spectrum or the other, you are capable of having it on both. So I'm talking about the athlete that is able to smirk prior to Fran. Like, this is going to be great. I'm going to feel terrible at the end. That person is also capable of saying, I'm going to go hold this boring ass pace for 90 minutes. And vice versa. If you're the type of person that like we consider the toughest in CrossFit is typically the person who can hold that super high pace in something for a long period of time. I don't want to hear that you're that tough, that you can handle that level of adversity for that length of time and that you can't go into the gym and try to make yourself vomit on the assault bike. Like, I don't need to hear that because you're the toughest person I know. So I don't want to fucking even get into that. So I think that portion of, if you figured out one side of this, use that as a little bit of a pat on the back to say, I can already do this. Like, you kidding me? I can try to make myself puke, but I can't hold a 2-minute pace on a machine for 40 minutes. Like, there's no reason for that to be the case. And if you're listening to this and you have no clue which athlete you are, there's a pretty good chance you're slotted into that GPP spot. And fucking congratulations.
Good news.
Keep doing what you're doing. Continue to make sure that you do go long and that you do move fast. And you continue to do all these things. That is the answer for everybody. Mm-hmm. We just take that slider, like Sherb said, and we go back and forth into other directions. I think we covered quite a bit here. And the idea is sort of taking the amount of effort as a fast twitch that you put into being explosive and stretch it out, or the amount of effort that you do if you're the, steel trap, like I can run a 6-minute mile forever. You got to be able to condense that down and put that level of energy into a lift, into an assault bike. I don't want those athletes to go sit on the bike and know that they're going to lose, so they dog it anyways. That's a fucking bummer.
Yeah, that's a tough mindset to get into when you feel like you're behind from the start. But I think that you said it perfectly when you were describing like I'm a little closer. And I think for a lot of athletes, especially the ones that are the fast twitch trying to go slow twitch, if you're having a rough day, or you really can't convince yourself that you want to go do it, go back to where you were a month ago and go look at that split, and you'll probably laugh because you're that much better already.
That's my favorite part of remote coaching. It is from where I sit. It is so easy to prove an athlete wrong if they'll go in and do that thing. So another plug for remote coaching, I would say, but also just really important to know that like when you remove yourself from what it feels like to have a weakness and let it become a part of your identity, it's not actually that complicated or that bad when you're, on the outside looking in.
Agreed.
All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. And thank you to our show sponsors. My wattage on that damn bike when I take proper pre. Woo, baby. The one with the caffeine. There's something about the symbiotic relationship between caffeine and the amino acids. My heart rate does not get higher. So a lot of people sort of say that, like, oh, if I go do this, will that be the case? And we're now at like N equals 5 or 6 here locally, with a lot of people being like, oh, I actually wasn't taking the caffeine version either because of the time of day or because of that. And my heart rate is staying low and I'm staying powerful. So properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit to save on your first order. PureSpectrumCBD.com. Use the code word Misfit, and SharpenTheAxeCo.com. Use the code word Keala, Keala, to save 10% and donate 10% to the Keala Foundation. As always, I am at Misfit Coach on Instagram. Slide into those DMs. Let me know what topic you'd like to hear next or propose a guest, and we'll see you next time.